Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. And everyone, how you doing? Welcome back to the program. Today on the show, we have computer and technology news for both segments. We were going to have Sandy Berger, but looking at my notes here, she, unfortunately, we had some kind of scheduling conflicts, so she should be back on next month. And in the meantime, hey, we got, computer and technology news. And by the way, there was a chance that, whenever these last minute things happen, it's kind of hard to put a show together, but I really made sure to do a show today because, well, it's not often that we have large news like this. And ladies and gentlemen, we have, it's never a good thing to report to really report on a death, but it's it's kind of what made me want to do the show. I didn't want to skip today because today, if you haven't heard, in the past 30 minutes, it's been reported. Unfortunately, John McAfee, yes, the founder of the McAfee antivirus software, was found dead in a prison cell. And we're going to go over everything that we know. There was some movement with his legal proceedings, and it's just, man, what an insane couple of years that guy had before the end there. We're going to talk about that, and there's a lot more to round out the hour, including some more on artificial sun, so nuclear fusion, and how that's going over in China, as well as Peloton, everything that's happening with their subscription model after the unfortunate accident with their kid. And the U.S. seizes 33 Iranian state-run media sites accused of election disinformation. Lots going on, and you can definitely stay tuned here for all of that and more. Everyone, on computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, past shows, future shows, all the shows, everything that we have done in the past, and of course the podcast. If you can't listen to us live on IRN, you can, of course, catch us wherever podcasts are heard. Simply search Computer America, and we should pop right up. And that goes for social media as well. But, as always, computeramerica.com will have everything that you need. Now, with that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started with computer and technology news. And I think we're going to start with that story about John McAfee. Here we go. How about we how about we go ahead and just jump right into this one, and McAfee. And so far, the one of the few places to start to publish this news is going to be right here. This is from Digismac. They mentioned that John McAfee, the creator of the antivirus, found dead in Bryant's 2 prison after the AN ordered his extradition. So obviously, if you don't know who McAfee is, I'm sure that you have heard of his software. And for the past couple of years, he was long off the boards of McAfee, the antivirus software, and long separated from his business that gave him that he gave his namesake to. But since then, he has actually showed up quite frequently in the crypto space. He was hugely influential during that 2017, I think, that 2017 when Bitcoin went to like $20,000. He was there shilling a bunch of coins and really scamming people out of those kinds of coins. He lived a crazy, crazy life. And yeah, we're going to see how this article takes us, but let's just say, man, I would say he should write a book, but I'm pretty sure he did. So there you go. Now, with that being said, and by the way, everything indicates that it could be death by suicide. The Department of Justice said in a statement, and John McAfee, you can see his image here up on the screen. So the Department of Justice of the General Litat has confirmed that the American magnate John McAfee, creator of the famous antivirus, has been found dead in a cell that he occupied in Module 1 of Bryant's 2 Penitentiary Center. He was 75 years old, and this morning, the National Court had given the go-ahead to extradite McAfee to the United States. Justice reported that the surveillance professionals and the prison medical services have intervened immediately to essentially resuscitate him, but finally the doctors had certified the death. The judicial procession has traveled to the prison and is investigating the cause of death. Everything indicates, as we said before, suicide. McAfee was arrested in October at El Prat Airport in Barcelona. So if you're wondering where all this is happening, Spain, Barcelona. And when he was about to catch a flight to Istanbul, and since he has been in preventative prison, and after the court also rejected his last request for freedom, considering that the risk of flight remains evident and that it does not have any appreciable sign of rootedness. So essentially, he asked to be released, and obviously, because he's wanted in so many different trials across many, many countries, they said he was a flight risk, and yeah, he was a flight risk. So the National Court had agreed to the extradition of John McAfee, creator of, as we said before, and for alleged tax evasion by hiding high income between 2016 and 2018. And they mentioned that, so they gave the go-ahead to extradite him, and they mentioned that the events relating to 2016, 2017, and 2018 financial years for which prosecutor was favorable. And like I said before, in 2017 in particular, I'm sure in the months and years before and after it, he was big in the crypto scene. He did this kind of scam where he was telling people that, cryptocurrency, and he ran this very, because his name is so recognizable, he ran it was mostly on Twitter and, kind of in back channels where he would highlight different cryptocurrency every week. Because back then, remember, cryptocurrency was popping up left, right, and center. Everyone and their mother was creating their own cryptocurrency. And what he would say on the backside was, we'll push our, 10 million, 5 million followers to put in money into a different cryptocurrency, be it $5, $10. Really, when you have a large enough following, it doesn't take much. And John McAfee and his associates were pushing this as, really the next Bitcoin, the next coin that's really going to take off. They would say things like, this technology is really fundamentally different. It's amazing. This is the best coin I've ever seen. This is going to be great. They talk all about it, hype it up. And then when they gave the signal, after people had bought into it, they and their other investors would, and people on the in crowd would pull their money out and essentially sell the coin while it was at a high and do that little bait and switch. he did this for a number of months, and until the point which he couldn't do it anymore. There were chat logs proving that he had done this, and on top of that, he earned a lot of money, and a lot of that money was earned through cryptocurrency. And you can be sure that even though it was, he definitely sold it for cash, because back then, no one really held cryptocurrency. You were, putting it back into US dollars. I am almost positive that, if it's scam money, he most likely took that money and put it, and hid it from tax. And obviously you could see here that 2016, 2017, 2018, tax evasion. Now, but not so with respect to those corresponding multiple years. And in Spain, they will be consecutive in any case of administrative infraction. Blah, blah, blah. They mentioned that contrary to the defense thesis, the court ruled that there are indications of persecution motivated by political, ideological, or similar reasons, since beyond the verbal allegations of McAfee, no any revealing hint that he might be subjected to it. Clearly, this article seems to have been, let's see if this is actually. This article definitely seems like it was translated from a different article. Let's see if John McAfee is actually dead. I should have done my research first. Okay, yeah, we can definitely pull this from a better resource. Reuters. So this one was published like 34 minutes ago, and this is like the first one that we found, and obviously it was, one of the first ones to break it. But 15 minutes ago, as of today, John McAfee found dead after Spanish court allows extradition, and very little detail about this. So they mentioned that the High Court had agreed to extradite him back to the U.S. He faces tax evasion charges. They mentioned that it was death by suicide, and he was supposed to be extradited back to the U.S. at age 75. I think that's everything else in the other article seems to be speculation, and probably shouldn't be taken as too credible. But still, he was also wanted for, I think it was like Colombia. He had a house and he like murdered his neighbor or something like that, and he was still on the run from that, or at least he was found not guilty or something along those lines. He was found with a bunch of drugs, and he had a lot of drug trafficking charges. I mean, this guy lived a hard last 10 years. It was really amazing to see his rise and downfall. Especially as someone who started against such a successful multi-billion-dollar company. So there you go. And again, that was kind of the impetus behind the show. So I apologize if the rest of the show seems a little, kind of hurried and pushed together. But hey, we work with what we have. But this next story is one that is, of course, a little bit of a follow-up to quite a different story. No one died in this one, thankfully, except maybe someone's dreams of being a cheerleader. And that's where this article comes in with The Verge. Addie Robertson saying that Supreme Court says a school can't punish a cheerleader for swearing on Snapchat, and a very important kind of upholding of what we consider the First Amendment. If you don't recall the story back when, there was a cheerleader, and by the way, the ruling ended with 8-1 in the Supreme Court. So just to flesh out the backstory, there was a cheerleader. She didn't make varsity. She was like on the junior varsity team. She wanted to make the varsity team, but she didn't make it. So she went on Snapchat after trying out and didn't make it. She went on Snapchat and said, quote, love how me and another student got told we need a year of junior varsity before we make varsity, but that doesn't matter to anyone else. Another student complained about the snap, and that doesn't matter to anyone else. And they mentioned that using profanity in connection with school extracurricular activity, because she also said, F the cheerleading squad, F this, F that. She was being vulgar, but still, she did it after school, off school property, in her car, something like that. And shared it to what she considered to be kind of like a private group. But even if it wasn't private, I mean, obviously someone saved the snap and shared it with the coach, who then punished her for what she said outside of school hours and away from school grounds. Somehow, that court case made it all the way to the Supreme Court, and again was handed down an 8-1 ruling where 8 people were in favor of the defendant, and saying that, well, she has a freedom of expression, she has freedom of speech, and the school doesn't like it, but the school also had no right to punish her for what she said off of school grounds. They mentioned that thanks to the case called Tinker v. Des Moines, independent community school district, schools can penalize on-campus speech that would materially or substantially disrupt the work and discipline of the school, even if it's protected by the First Amendment, but the standard for speech in other settings has been historically fuzzier, especially on social media where posts can be viewed anywhere at any time. Bayer said that the appeals court had ruled too broadly to limit Tinker, and he affirmed that school can punish students for some off-campus speech, citing things like bullying and harassment as disruptive speech. His rulings also say the rise of distance learning has particularly complicated the issue, and the way that Levy used social media mattered. Her snap was sent to a private circle of friends and fellow students, and she didn't identify the school or target or any particular student. So obviously they ruled in her favor, not so much, just broadly sweeping. She can say anything she wants, anytime, anywhere. But again, context matters. Still, the ruling emphatically supports students who make offensive statements online. Justice Clarence Thomas was the sole dissenting vote on the case. Thomas, who had argued for legally stopping social media platforms from banning their users, wrote that schools may have more authority, not less, to discipline students who transmit speech through social media. His dissenting opinion states that because off-campus speech made through social media can be received on campus, and of course spread rapidly to countless people, it often will have a greater proximate tendency to harm the school environment than will an off-campus in-person conversation. I'm glad that was the only dissenting vote with that one, because that kind of gives way to the idea that let's say, how do you put this? If schools were allowed to punish students for what they say off campus, just because it can be received on campus. Let's say I put up a video and then I go back to school the next day and someone watches my post on social media in school during school hours. Even though I made it another time, that would still be punishable, and obviously it would still be applicable because whoever I was complaining about, wherever, all that kind of thing, would still be, would still matter. That means that the school would then be able to react and punish anything said about the school anywhere by any student at any time on any platform, or at least especially on social media platforms, which would be just a huge infringement on freedom of speech. To the idea that, you could not speak freely on your own platform without fear of retribution at the workplace the next day. Not even on the platform itself, but in the workplace the next day. Definitely a very controversial opinion from Clarence Thomas, but yeah, I've definitely noticed that Clarence Thomas is, as they mentioned, he was allegedly, he argued for legally stopping social media platforms from banning their users, and this would be kind of the opposite. So it's, I'm glad that I'm glad that the Supreme Court kind of ruled this way, because that would definitely limit what one could say on social media. And yeah, that's a whole can of worms. So there you have it. Story number 2. Definitely hard-hitting court cases there. Let's go ahead and talk about Okay. How about we talk about Altice? If you have Altice, you may have received notification by email or letter or however the heck they do it, but they're not going to receive it, or they're not going to receive a response because they limited upload speed. Check this one out. In a matter of weeks, they'll be augmenting their current plans where Altice is reducing internet upload speed by up to 86% next month. So for those who don't know, Altice apparently had different tiers of service, and they had like Optimum Online, 200, 300, 400, 500, 1 gig, and the download speeds for all of these kind of match their number. So Optimum 300 gave you 300 megabits per second download speed, and Optimum 500 gave you 500 megabits download speed. And here's the part. For whatever reason, before you had 35 megabits per second upload speed baseline. So if you had cable and you had a minimum of 100 megabits per second download speed, you had at a minimum 35 megabits per second upload speed. And that increased with the Optimum 400, you had 40 megabits per second, and Optimum 500, you had 35 megabits per second. So, you had a little bit of wiggle room there. You know, the Optimum 400 again having like 40, and then of course the 1 gig, which is the top tier of their plan. And I'm sure only a couple people have fiber, but those people had 50 megabits per second, which is super surprising. Most fiber services gave you 1 gig upload and 1 gig download, or at least that's what it was with I believe Comcast and Google Fiber. Well, after 7/12/21, and so that's going to be in just under a month, and just over 2 weeks, you're looking at speeds, the upload speeds at least, of 5 megabits per second, 10, 20, 20, 20, 35, and 1 gig getting 35 megabits per second. Now, we of course need to find out why they're doing this, but I believe their initial statement was they're doing it to be more in line with other ISPs and aligned with the industry. Now, with that being said, they mentioned that Altice notes that its fiber to the home service provides symmetrical speeds with uploads as high as downloads. When asked why it isn't raising cable upload speeds instead of lowering them, Altice told Ars, over the last few years, we have been investing in building 100% fiber network. We are hyper-focused on our fiber expansion, which is currently available to over 1 million homes and offers symmetrical speeds of up to 1 gigabits per second. Now, Ars mentions a 100% fiber network doesn't mean Altice will upgrade all or even most of its cable customers to fiber. It's 100% fiber in the sense that customers who are in the fiber footprint won't be limited by old cable wires. Those 1 million homes with fiber are reportedly just 20% of Altice's entire footprint, so most customers can't get symmetrical speeds. And Altice told investors that it will add 500,000 more homes to its fiber network, and it offers services in 21 states and 4.4 million internet customers. Essentially what they're saying there is that they have a lot more people than fiber, and their statement reveals that they are just interested in those who have fiber, and they're only interested in upgrading people who have access to fiber. Everyone else can go elsewhere, I guess, is really their story there, because they're not improving their network, but rather they are limiting their network everywhere else. Which you would imagine a company with millions of customers, and they're spending, or allegedly spending, so much money on upgrading their infrastructure. The fact that they're spending money and reducing their customers' ability to use the internet is really, really weird. So cable, they mentioned that for years the cable industry has been teasing future upgrades that will let cable networks deliver symmetrical download speeds. But despite upgrades to DOCSIS, the data over cable service interface specification, major cable providers generally still do not provide upload speeds higher than 35 megabits per second. By the way, as sad as it is, I mean, 35 megabits per second is actually pretty good for cable. I mean, I know around here, there's nowhere, I think the highest we can get around here is like 15 or 20 megabits per second upload. 35 would be a dream, but sad to say, Altice saying that they're more in line with the industry standard. They're not wrong there. I would say most of the industry is actually lower, but the fact that they would cut themselves off at the knees just to save a buck, Now, Comcast recently touted a lab test in which DOCSIS 4.0 in which it used DOCSIS 4.0 to deliver 4 gigabits per second uploads and downloads over cable, but the company gave no indication of when it will raise its commercially available cable upload speeds. They mentioned that Comcast only offers symmetrical speeds on its fiber network, which isn't as widespread as its cable footprint. Really, I mean, it's great and all that fiber's rolling out. It's clearly the future of internet connectivity, but at the same time, it's available to so many less people. I wish that they would make more investments into their cable network, because that seems to be where the majority of customers lay. Comcast and Charter's advertised upload speeds on their cable network still max out at 35 megabits per second, and customers have to buy the gigabit download plan to get that 35 megabits per second upload speed, whereas Comcast's slowest plan has 3 megabits per second and Charter's slowest plan is 4 megabits per second upload. Really, it's, again, insane that they are actually reducing the service, making the service worse instead of better, when they're really promising, we're investing all this money into making our service better and better. Now with, and by the way, people in the comments are of course joking on the fact that, look, competition, and they are reducing their service. For that. For those who are completely sitting there and going, well, download speed and upload speed, what's the difference? Just a quick reminder, download would be if you are, let's say you're streaming Netflix, or you're watching YouTube, or you're downloading a document off the, off the internet, or anything like that. If you are consuming data, that's where your download speed is most important. And then your upload speed would be, let's say you're making a video call and you're trying to send data from your device and, send it to someone else, that would be your upload speed. So, video streaming, voice calls, while you don't need, you don't need one gig upload speed, the better your upload speed, the more bandwidth you have, and the more reliable everything is, and everything runs. You want as much upload speed as possible, not less. And while you could get away with less, that definitely limits the amount of what activities that you can do. There you go. It's I hope that everyone kind of gets better internet here soon, because it seems like cable companies aren't really looking to break the mold and give us a better option. Definitely have to find out. Now, someone who's probably not in a prison cell somewhere are the founders of a South African Bitcoin exchange. And they vanished after a $3.6 billion hack. Check this out. Investors can't find the Kaji brothers, if I'm saying that right. Cryptocurrency investors in South Africa may have lost nearly $3.6 billion in Bitcoin following the disappearance of two brothers associated with one of the country's largest cryptocurrency exchanges. And according to Bloomberg, a law firm in Cape Town says it can't locate Amir and Reyes Kaji, the founders of Africrypt. There you go. In April, the exchange told its investors that it was the victim of a hack and asked them not to report the incident to the authorities on account it would slow down the process of recovering their missing money. Boy, howdy. As much as people don't like regulation, I'm glad we have regulation, at least to this extent. The fact that the victims, quote unquote, of this hack that lost billions of dollars said, "Oh, no, don't tell the cops." Man, I'm sure that gave them plenty of time to get away with it. Some of those involved in the exchange hired a number of attorneys. The law firm said it couldn't find the two brothers to investigate the incident. It found that someone had withdrawn Avocrypt's pooled funds from the local accounts and client wallets where the coins were stored originally and put them through tumblers and mixers, making it difficult, though not impossible, to trace the money. And so obviously through tumblers and mixers, that means just a series of accounts that are meant to hide the transactions, where you can still track, go from one to the next to the next to the next. Imagine you send 10 Bitcoin to 10 different wallets, and then that 10 different wallets sent it to 100 different wallets, and those 100 different wallets sends it to 1,000 different wallets. Really, you go as deep as you want to until eventually all the money that was sent through all these different wallets were then sent back to one remaining wallet. It's not impossible to find, where it was, but it definitely makes it harder to find where the money eventually ended up. Now, Avocrypt employees lost access to the back-end platform 7 days before the alleged hack, and the outlet attempted to call the brothers multiple times only to get their voicemails each time. Clearly, they're off the grid. Complicating any recovery attempt is that the South Africa's Finance Sector Conduct Authority can't launch a formal investigation into the incident because, cryptocurrency isn't legally considered a financial product in the country. If no one can recover their money, it will go down as the largest cryptocurrency loss in history, easily overshadowing the $200 million Canadian dollars that disappeared when the founder of Canada's Quadriga CX exchange died while traveling in India. So there you go. It's and you can of course point to things like Mt. Gox, which they were able to recover most of those funds as well. And I hope that they are able to recover this money on top of it. But cryptocurrency exchanges seem to be a favorite for hackers to, of course, hack, and then of course for thieves to start running. When you give that much access to that much money, I dare say it would be hard for anyone to not run away with it. $3.6 billion is a lot of money. And of course, if they can just say, oh, some hackers took it, and then they flee the country and they start, kind of living as scarcely as they can, hey, they might just get away with it. That'd be a very different one, but definitely have to wait and see. I would honestly be surprised if these two brothers were not responsible for the missing money. Now, let's go ahead and continue on. And this next story confused me. I heard about it on social media first. I saw it on Reddit, if I'm being honest, and it had to do with Peloton's Tread Plus, which, if you recall, Peloton a couple of weeks ago, they had some concerns with their treadmills. Killed a baby, I recall, or something like that, where there weren't proper safety features in place that caused the baby to harm itself, and the treadmill to harm the baby, and the baby didn't make it. Now, looks like there was what appears to be a bug. One would hope. Now, Peloton and their Tread Plus temporarily needs a subscription, but a fix is on the way. This is by Chris Holt over at Engadget, and they're mentioning that the company is temporarily waiving membership fees amid the messy rollout of a safety feature. Peloton has temporarily moved the basic running mode of Tread Plus behind a paywall for safety reasons. However, the company is waiving subscription fees for 3 months while it works on a fix to make the Just Run mode available without a membership. Owners of the treadmill, which cost about $4,000, which is, I get it. Equipment is expensive, and the fact that they can roll a subscription model into it, the subscription model doesn't irk me as much as it does other people, because they're uploading new content for it. If it were a static thing and you were just paying a subscription model to access the static thing, whatever. Be mad. But the fact that you're paying $40 for new videos, new trainers, new workout exercises, the ability to connect to people online, and of course all the updating and infrastructure they have to do on the back end, I kind of get it. Now, a recent update moved the Just Run button behind Tread Lock, which is a subscriber-only safety feature. A number of injuries and a death have been reported in connection with Peloton's treadmills. They added the Tread Lock passcode feature to secure Tread Plus against unauthorized access. Essentially, you had to have a password or some kind of username or way to identify yourself to use the Just Run feature. And the Just Run feature, again, is the one that caused the death. In May, the company announced a voluntary recall of its treadmills in the US and Canada as part of an agreement with the US Consumer Safety Commission. Peloton also said it would no longer sell Tread or Tread Plus in the US following the safety issues. The company is working on updates to Tread Lock that will allow us to make Tread Lock and Just Run available without a membership. Still, some users expressed their anger about the move. According to PC Mag, one suggested that their Tread Plus would be a paperweight without a subscription, and others threatened legal action. While Peloton is doing the right thing by giving users a free Tread Plus subscription, the controversy shows the company could have done a better job communicating with customers about the change. It's a hard situation to be in. Clearly, regulators and investigators were on Peloton to do something, to change something. And the most immediate and effective response was to put the Just Run or Just Walk, whatever, the Just Walk feature behind a paywall that required some kind of authentication so that babies couldn't accidentally turn it on. Small children wouldn't accidentally activate the feature. That was the immediate snap decision that said this will stop any more deaths from happening, which to the company, I'm sure was the number one solution, priority was to prevent any more injury or death from their products. The fact that other people are getting angry about it and saying that, well, now I can't do anything with it, that should be solved by the free membership that they're giving people. And if they fix it after the 3 months, or hopefully before the 3 months is up, then yeah, it's a little more inconvenient. People are a little upset. You can see how in a kind of a headline setting where it says that, treadmill doesn't work without a subscription would look very bad. But clearly they're trying to appease regulators. They're trying to appease the Consumer Product Safety Commission in that their equipment will not hurt anyone else. Was it the best, could it have gone better? Absolutely. And, should anyone be mad at them? Probably not. They seem like they're just doing the quickest, best reaction that they possibly could. So there you go. Good luck, Peloton. Rock in a hard place. Although, again, I think they really did do probably the best that they could. Okay, how about for our next story? And again, here's where it starts to come apart at the seams because we weren't even going to, weren't even going to do a show, but here we go. Lobbyists, tech lobbyists in DC, happens all the time. This one, though, is a bit weirder because Tim Cook, yes, the CEO of Apple, looks like gave a personal call to Nancy Pelosi to warn her against disrupting the iPhone with impending antitrust bills, saying that big tech lobbyists are fighting tooth and nail against regulation. And I gotta say, if anyone needs regulation, big tech definitely needs some good old-fashioned regulation. Now, Apple CEO Tim Cook himself called Speaker Nancy Pelosi to deliver a warning that the rushed antitrust bills could disrupt the iPhone. And that's not all, saying, quote, executives, lobbyists, and more than a dozen think tanks and advocacy groups paid by tech companies have swarmed Capitol offices, called and emailed lawmakers and their staff members, and written letters arguing that there will be dire consequences for the industry and the country if the ideas become law. Now, clearly there's a growing sense that the current administration has a genuine interest in combating tech monopolies, a point perhaps made most clear when Biden chose prominent antitrust scholar and Amazon critic to lead the Federal Trade Commission. Still, tech companies do not want to be reined in, but to be able to call the Speaker of the House and deliver a warning that, the American people will suffer if you do this, if you hurt my company, $2 trillion companies should not be able to call up our lawmakers because clearly that's going to have a little bit more impact than any individual constituent. But they mentioned that it's not unusual for tech companies to dive deeper into lobbying these days, as you'd expect now that they're the most valuable companies in the world, and we've seen their outsized influence overwhelm voters and legislators at the local level before. Of course, the article mentions back to Uber and Lyft being able to beat down the bill that would have made drivers for Uber and Lyft full-time employees rather than contract workers, even though, when it was polled to the individual people, it had overwhelming support that, these companies should have, should be labeling its workers as, employees. It was still defeated at the ballot box. And they mentioned that Arizona and their controversial App Store bill mysteriously disappeared after tech companies stepped in. And Apple lobbyists managed to scare California's legislators away from a right to repair bill in 2019. And of course, the right to repair being very central to Apple, who runs their own repair services and support services for the Apple iPhone. Yeah, Pelosi apparently wasn't having it, though, at least not on the call. She pushed back against Cook, according to the Times sources. So, good on Pelosi for standing up to Tim Cook. Let's make sure that continues to happen. Okay, that was story number, what was that? Story number 6? Story number 7. Story number 7, we can go ahead and talk about... I guess we can talk about China real quick. And I'm always dubious about scientific results coming out of China. But this one looks a little promising. So we're going to cross our fingers and hope that is actually real. The holy grail of clean energy is going to be fusion, the same powering process that happens in our sun every second of the day. Being able to do that here on Earth in a controlled environment would give us a ton of access to really almost limitless energy, using some of the most abundant elements found on in the universe, and being able to turn that into fuel. Very, very important. A lot of different think tanks, and of course, we've seen a lot of stuff come out of Europe with their efforts at recreating fusion. The United States has some experiments going, and while I haven't heard much about China's, it looks like they're having a pretty good time with this new record that was set, where China And their artificial sun just smashed a fusion world record. And I like smash because obviously that's what they're doing. They're smashing two atoms together to create excess energy. They mentioned that the tokamak has sustained a plasma reaction for a whopping 101 seconds at 120 million degrees Celsius, setting a new record in the field of nuclear fusion. The breakthrough could pave the way for a carbon-neutral energy future. And EAST, which is the Experimental Advanced Superconducting Tokamak, is a custom-built fusion reactor that has operated in different phases since 2006. And they mentioned that as a refresher, inside the donut shape, which you can see here on the screen, is it's donut shaped. Containment of a tokamak, sun-hot plasma swirls in a circle that's held in place by supercooled electromagnets. Really, that's the only way to do something like this, where if you are, again, for 101 seconds at this point, dealing with temperatures of 120 million degrees Celsius, which is very, 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 very hot, anything else would melt. You start to break down the fundamentals of chemistry. Any metal would melt, anything would melt, it'd be awful. So the only way is you have this stream of plasma that is suspended in midair by magnets. And so there's nothing actually touching it. There's nothing that would actually melt, because it doesn't actually come in contact with anything. It is completely contained and everything's good. This requires, and obviously the magnetic field is the only thing floating between 360 million degree plasma and a bunch of human-made materials that can sustain that temperature. Now, that requires a huge energy investment, which critics say means fusion will never really get off the ground. And so far, all of these different reactors work for just a few seconds at lower temperatures before something goes wrong. Still, they mentioned that this is why EAST, which properly turned on last December, running for 101 seconds at 120 million Celsius, is such a huge deal. They mentioned that it's a very long runtime and it's a very high temperature. Back in 2018, we saw one reach 180 million degrees Fahrenheit, or about 82 million degrees Celsius. So about this one, the Chinese one was 50% hotter, and that one only ran for about 10 seconds. This one is 50% hotter and 10 times as longer lasting. Still, that's not hot or long enough, but 120 million degrees Celsius and 101 seconds is certainly more impressive. So this is a record for both the required power generating temperature and the duration for keeping the temperature at a stable level. All that being said, the future of the project could involve lessons learned at ITER, Korea's, that they have one as well, masked, and even private researchers that are working away at major obstacles for fusion energy, all with the same goal: to sustain an extremely hot reaction and keep the equipment safely running for as long as possible. So if you can get that reaction to just happen continuously, you would obviously have near infinite energy. And you can see why so many companies and so many private industries are looking to do this, because whoever cracks the code and whoever gets this to actually work will have near limitless energy to sell. And, hey, maybe you wouldn't even have to sell these things. Maybe everyone would just have infinite energy at their fingertips. That'd be pretty cool. But clearly, we are far away from that ideal. But we're working towards it. We're hoping. Now, let's see. There's that story. And I think, let me check a couple more sources. I think our next story we're going to cover, this one's actually really cool. This one coming to us from the BBC and their tech site, Rembrandt. You may have heard of him. He does arts and things. Well, one thing that technology is not really good, or they claim technology isn't very good at, is art and being able to interpret it, make it, create it, all that kind of thing. Well, with a step in the right direction, Rembrandt's The Night Watch painting restored by AI. They mentioned that the canvas, created in 1642, was trimmed in 1715 to fit between two doors at Amsterdam's City Hall. Imagine. But here we are. Since then, 2 feet from the left, and they mentioned that 2 feet from the left and about less than a foot from the top, 12 centimeters from the bottom, so that would be, what is that? Just a couple of inches from the bottom, and just 2 or 3 inches from the right were missing. So a lot from the left, a little bit from the bottom, a little bit from the top, a little bit from the right. But computer software has now fully restored the painting for the first time in 300 years. I guess so they say. I guess they cut it off because it wasn't all that important, I guess is what they were thinking, but still. They mentioned that AI works through machine learning, where computers trained by processing existing information, and they mentioned that the original painting is displayed using 2 images to train the AI. The first was a high-resolution scan of the original, and the second, a painted copy made before the trimming by another artist. Rather than hiring a painter for the reconstruction, the art was created pixel by pixel in Rembrandt style, using the scanned photos as a reference for the details and colors used in the original, saying that, quote, "Our attempt here is to make a best guess without the hand of an artist in what the night watch looked like." So I guess they knew exactly what was there before. The only thing is they had a recreation of the picture, so they knew, kind of what was already trimmed off. They had a recreation, but without hiring a painter who's going to have his own influences and his own style and his own brushstrokes and all that kind of thing. The artificial intelligence and machine learning recreated the painting as best the AI could in Rembrandt's own style. Bit by bit, little bit of information by little bit of information. The images were then printed and mounted at the side of the original painting, so visitors can imagine the full canvas as intended by the artist. Museum visitors will now be able to see the changes, including 3 figures on the left-hand side, 2 men and a boy, a complete helmet on the right side of the painting, a clearer view of a boy in the left foreground running away from the militia, and repositioning of the painting's composition so its figures are in a different place. Essentially, by cutting off those few feet from the left, instead of something being completely in the middle, it would now be a little bit off center, and obviously the focus of the painting would be different. So you can see why that would matter. And they mentioned that both the movement and dynamics gained an enormous equality, and that helps us get a better understanding of the original intentions both of the artist and of the painting as a concept. After trimming it to fit City Hall years later, the painting now lives at the museum and the Rijksmuseum. The restored scans will be displayed for 3 months as part of a temporary exhibition, and you can see them on the website. But of course, you can see the museum curators putting it in place there next to the original painting. Very cool, though. Very nice idea to train the AI. Clearly, the AI had something to work towards, but they wanted to use Rembrandt's own technique to then recreate the painting itself. Definitely a very different take on the technology. Okay. How How about DeepMind? Last I heard about DeepMind, it was trying to solve glaucoma and cancer. So let's see what DeepMind is working with now. And warning, if you're not into bugs, then this picture will not be good for you. Let's see. So let's pull everything back up here. Perfect. DeepMind is... perfect. There we go. DeepMind uses AI to tackle neglected deadly diseases. What does that mean? Let's find out. They say that artificial intelligence is to be used to tackle the most deadly parasitic disease in the developing world. The London-based Alphabet-owned lab will work with the Drugs for Neglected Diseases initiative to treat Chagas disease and leishmaniasis. I'm not good with disease names. Scientists spend years in laboratories mapping protein structures, but last year, DeepMind's AlphaFold program was able to achieve the same accuracy in a matter of days. They mentioned that many diseases are linked to the roles of proteins in the catalyzing chemical reactions, the enzymes, the fighting disease antibodies, and acting as chemical messengers, hormones such as insulin. If you've ever seen one of these things, I remember there was an experiment where they tried to get individuals to fold proteins in their spare time. So anyone could log onto the site. You would be given a little piece of a protein. Right now on the screen, we're looking at this giant, what looks like just complete gobbledygook of, multiple colors and multiple proteins. And individual people would be given little parts of the protein, and it would be your job to kind of, using your mouse, to manipulate this, fold this into different shapes. And scientists obviously knew what they were doing and, how they were kind of manipulating these things. But what the scientists needed from everyday people, UI or anyone who logged onto the website, was just different permutations. They needed different ways that the protein would fold. You obviously couldn't break the laws of physics and fold it, through itself. But yeah, they were just having people fold these proteins in infinite ways. Let's say they had 1 million people log onto the website and fold it for about 5 minutes. That's 5 million minutes that scientists themselves didn't have to do. Admittedly, people didn't know exactly what they were doing, but they definitely helped it immensely. And that kind of effort was put through DeepMind, and DeepMind was able to get the same level of results in a matter of days that it took scientists years to do. Huge improvement. Now, they mentioned that the company wanted to focus on underserved and neglected areas. They mentioned that we hope that AlphaFold will have a real-world impact on our understanding of disease and drug discovery for communities who are in greater need of treatments. They mention in here, they talk about these 2 different diseases that they're currently dealing with and how existing drugs have been ineffective. Patients affected by the neglected diseases rely on outdated treatments that are sometimes toxic and have serious side effects and are often not fit for purpose. He hopes that the partnership will lead to the discovery of drugs that will be easy to take orally, saying that AI can be a game changer by predicting protein structures for previously unsolved protein structures. AlphaFold opens a new research horizon. Saying, quote, "It is heartening to see powerful cutting-edge drug discovery technologies enabling work on some of the world's most neglected diseases." And hey, curing disease. I think that of all the things technology can do, that might be one of the most important, but also altruistic things that it could do. So the article wraps up by saying that DeepMind has been criticized in recent years after data from its health division has been transferred to its parent company Google, and as a result, some partners withdrew from its Streams app, which helps doctors and nurses in some National Health Services hospitals monitor patients with kidney conditions. But last year, the AI program was used to map some of the SARS-CoV-2 virus proteins, and virologists used the information to better understand how the virus behaved. DeepMind will also be publishing a peer-reviewed paper detailing the workings of its system, providing free access to AlphaFold for the scientific community. And it plans to collaborate on tackling other diseases in the future. Clearly, huge benefit, and if this saves countless, research hours and time and funding that can go to other people and other pursuits, that can only be a positive, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. So the music in the background means that we are just about done. The only article we really didn't get to was this U.S. seizing these different Iranian state-run sites for disinformation, and of course the Iranian government condemned the seizures. They said that it's not constructive when talks for a deal on the nuclear issue are underway, obviously saying that the U.S. is being a little ham-fisted. And then, of course, because of sanctions and other things, the websites use domains owned by U.S. companies. So essentially, the U.S. is saying this was in our jurisdiction because you're using things like GoDaddy or Wix or enter other company here. So everyone, we're about done. Thank you for joining us for the program. Tune in tomorrow. We have an interview with Access 360. If you haven't heard about them, tomorrow's going to be a lot of fun. Everyone, until next time, thank you for tuning into the show. We'll catch you then. Bye, everyone.